Today we're going to be going over Thor, God of Thunder, issue number 1. Written by Jason Aaron and illustrated by Esad Ribic. This book was originally published in 2013 and is part of my college experience. Like, seriously, no joke. This book especially has a lot of significance to me and a lot of nostalgic value, essentially. I remember... I guess I'll go ahead and say it, skipping class and not doing homework because I was so enthralled with this series at the time that it was coming out in 2013. And, you know, it's unfortunate because Jason Aaron recently, as of 2020, really hasn't been making a lot of great stories or comics. And personally, I think his Punisher run is one of the worst things he's done in a long time. But for some reason, I think this one specifically just hits home for me because of Esad Ribic's art. It is essentially paintings on paper. When we open this book up, and we're going to in a second, you'll understand what I mean by paintings on paper. These are literal illustrations. You feel like you're looking at fine art when you read this book. It is God tier level art, which is ironic, funny enough, because Thor is the god of thunder. We are also introduced to Gorr, the God Butcher, which just recently showed up in the Thor film, Thor Love and Thunder, which is what I don't think they tried to base the movie off of. I really hope they didn't, because if they did, it's a sad departure from the actual comic. Because the comic series, and I have every issue, and they are very well read, because I read through these things multiple times in college, and even now, I'll go back and read it just because I have so much fun. But in this series, Gorr is a menacing, almost psychopathic god killer. And that is what makes him so terrifying, is because he utilizes these things to his advantage to torture and kill gods across the universe. And Thor is essentially met his match. He is now up against this psychopathic serial killer of gods, which is in essence very terrifying, and which is also why I thought this series had a lot of weight to it. It had stakes, assigned to it, because now you really are kind of worried for Thor's. It's a life and death scenario here when it comes to Gorr the God Butcher. But let's just go ahead and get into this book. All right, so here is issue number 1, and like I said, Esad Ribic is doing most of the covers and all the interior art on all of these books, and already it looks like they just took a photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger or something and put him on the cover. This figure of Thor, the structure, how he's built, it reminds me of a legitimate classic bodybuilding physique or an open bodybuilding physique. This is what a god would essentially look like. And it's interesting because if you guys look behind me, Thor, the Breaker of Brimstone statue here, is actually based off of Esad Ribic's art, which is what we're going to check out in this book right here. But that's one of my favorite statues, actually, because of this book series. And let's go ahead and open this bad boy up. And already, like I said at the beginning of the video, you are getting fine art. You are getting paintings on paper. This looks like a painting of a Nordic layout of a spanning, wasteland or civilization. And it does say the western coast of Iceland. If you guys notice, there's a little AR here in the corner. We'll get to that later. You guys will understand what that is if you were reading in 2013. I also really enjoy this panel down here, which basically says Thor has defeated this frost giant in the western coast of Iceland, and he's on Earth, and this is young Thor, so he doesn't have his hammer yet, but he's just defeated this frost giant, and he says, "That was 4 days ago. Since then I've eaten more goats than the frost giant, drank enough mead to drown a dozen sailors, and made love to half the women in the village. I am Thor Odinson, god of thunder, prince of Asgard, heir to the throne of the realm eternal. I love my life. And here he is down here. Based Thor, absolute Chad Thor in this book. I love it. So then, unfortunately though, in the middle of the merriment, the excitement, we hear a scream. Thor goes to look out and see what it is, and what essentially we have is this individual who has been murdered, and his body parts are washing up onto the shore. And so this woman who has found the body says, "What do you see?" She goes, Lord Thor, pray tell, what do you see when you look into his eyes?" And the face that Thor makes says it all. He says he was a god. And then we start to kind of understand the weight of what that means for Thor and this village. And this is the beginning, the inner workings of Gorr, all the way back to young Thor, and how Gorr has played this huge part throughout Thor's essentially entire life. But Thor kind of reassures the villagers. He goes, now, don't worry. Let's all go back and drink some more mead, and we'll talk about it another time. Nothing to be worried about here, kind of reassuring the villagers. But then up top here at this panel, he says, "I've seen war in the heavens. I've seen gods suffer and bleed. I've seen immortal fathers subject to their own sons to torment you could never imagine. I've seen hell itself, but no, I've never seen anything like this horror in this god's eyes." And so he kind of says this quietly to the woman who initially found the body. And they sit and stare as the woman begins to pray to the gods for this lost soul. We now go to present-day Thor, where an individual on this planetary deep space, the planet Indigar is what I believe it says, he begins to pray for rain. He says, "It hasn't rained on my planet for many years. Everything here has died." And so he begins to pray to Thor. And sure enough, as all these people begin to pray, Thor shows up with a baroom, a huge krakoom, the crackle of thunder and lightning. And Thor comes down to Earth. Once again, beautiful artwork and depiction of Thor in this book. I love his stature, his presence, his pose. Everything looks so real and so well done. If there's the one thing that I'll say too about Esad Ribick's design of the costume of Thor's uniform in this, one, I love that he keeps the helmet on most of the time. The helmet is normally on. Two, I like that he doesn't have any sleeves, so you can really see the striations and the musculature of the arms and even the veins. Like, Esad Ribick's veins are just unreal. And then also I love the kind of armor-plated leggings and the tabard that he wears, and of course the red, deep red, heavy flowing cape. The whole design of Thor in this book is fantastic. So he goes, "I am Thor, warrior of Asgard, avenger of Earth, and I swear by all that is holy, no one will die here today." So he answers this young man's prayers. He comes to the rescue, and the village people say, thank you in their own way, so they begin to make him drink and food. And so he lays the child down to sleep, and before he leaves, one of the elder men says that they haven't had gods for centuries here, and that his grandmother or something like that has only talked about gods in the form of just stories and fairy tales. And Thor says, "No gods in all my travels. I've never known a world without gods." So he's upset. He's wondering what these people have been doing this whole time. Why would they pray to Thor? Their gods are existing up in the heavens of these people's particular gods. Why call to Thor? And so the Elderman says that there hasn't been any gods and that they don't know of any in their realm. So then Thor essentially says, "Let us speak no more of this any further." So Thor is understandably upset because he doesn't know why these people don't have gods, because the gods need to be doing their job, their duty of protecting their people. So Thor goes out to find who these gods are, to go see what has happened to them, or to see why they aren't answering these people's prayers. So this is actually interesting. This ad right here, and in the video earlier, I mentioned this little AR code. If you guys were reading comics in the mid-2000s, this little AR code was something that your phone could scan digitally in the comic, and it would give you like details into the book, or it would give you like videos or music or behind the scenes footage or sketches or something like that. And so basically you would download the AR app and the augmented reality app, I know, and then you would scan it, and then it would show you like a page or something, or it would show you a video about how they created the book. I don't remember how well it worked or not, and I think I only used it a few times, even though I was reading a lot back then. I don't know if Marvel would be well off by doing something like that again, because I know they're trying to get into digital comics. But I mean, hey, this was a start in the right direction, I guess. I don't know how well it worked out, but anyway. So Thor finally finds the fortress of the gods that they inhabit, and when he sees that, he knows that something's wrong, because there is no life, essentially, on this fortress. So he goes in, and he starts to describe how there has been no life here, how he's saying, "Show yourselves, nothing in the air but echoes and dust." So he uses his hammer as a light to guide his way through the library, through the different halls of this kingdom, of this God's palace, and he can't find anything until he reaches a storage building. And he says in the comic that, a storage house, by the looks of it, I didn't even consider it worth checking until he saw the chains. And here are the chains that are attached. That, to me, is creepy as hell, and I love it. That is a great factor in this book, is it's almost, I wouldn't call it a horror, but it's definitely, there are like little elements here and there of horror, of maybe thriller. So I like that there is this kind of haunting or daunting presence that Thor is searching for here. It's not just some big, mean, evil bad guy. It's like, oh, this dude is actually horrifying. Like, and what we're about to see here in these next few panels is even more so, because we realize that this is no just simple bad guy. This is truly a serial killer villain, as we see Thor look upon the dead, mutilated bodies of gods, literal gods, hung up by hooks, tortured, mutilated. This image right here, and this is why I love Esad Ribic so much. He portrays everything that he needs to portray, and yet there is no dialogue, there is nothing. Thor's body is in a state of like readiness, but yet also somewhat of fear. It is perfectly done. It's well colored, because it's this dark image that you need to represent as this horrifying, really terrifying event. As Thor, who is a god, has never seen anything like this ever. And so that image alone is one of my favorites in the book. He then goes to follow essentially the line of dead bodies around this entire storage building, and how all of them have been tortured in some way or another. He says their deaths were skillfully prolonged, their suffering relished. This was the work of one hand, one that was steady and accomplished, and extremely well versed in its art. There's a variety to the wounds, the work of many different weapons, but no sign of a single one. So he's basically almost kind of doing like detective work at this point, trying to see who could have done something like this. And all of a sudden, we get a guard dog from hell, essentially, who is protecting these bodies. And so Thor has to fight off this guard dog. And he says, it attacks like a guard dog from hell. And he is one very strong guard dog as well. So after he kind of defeats this guard dog who is guarding the bodies here, which is not the actual villain, by the way. This is just a presence to keep anyone that is there at bay. So it's not actually Gorr the God Butcher at this point. But Thor does realize that this, because of this guard dog, he says, if Gorr the God Butcher yet lives, it can only mean one thing. More gods are sure to die. And finally, we get Future Thor. Future Thor here is a Chad. He looks great. And once again, like I said, the costume design, the actual character design of this King Thor, which is our future Thor, the Great Hall in the Great Hall of Asgard, is stunning. Absolutely, truly beautiful. Once again, this artwork, these panels, this layout, this pose, perfection. It's everything I could want from a Thor book. Here you go with that little AR code again. I wonder what that would have said. So King Thor, though, Old Man Thor, is now the last remaining god in the galaxy. In the future, the only remaining god left is Thor. And he has lost his arm at this point, so he has this kind of robotic arm that he uses from the Guardian. And he is wielding his trusty hammer Mjolnir with a sword and is fighting off all of these dogs of hell that were sent to him from Gorr. But he talks about how if he is to die, he will die as a god. And then he faces all of these shadow creatures, all of these guard dogs on Asgard. He says, know that I will face it like a god. Well, there you have it. That is Thor, God of Thunder, issue number 1. What did you guys think? Did you read this one? And if you did you know that they were going to depart so much farther from this book as opposed to the actual movie that they did? It's honestly a disgrace comparatively when you read this book and you see the interiors and how horrifying and how action-packed and how interesting it is, comparatively to just the crap that we saw with Thor Love and Thunder. That film, just an abysmal joke. So I would highly recommend, instead of watching that movie, go read this book because it's much better. You can find the selected works in an omnibus form or in trade paperback form. They're not printing the series anymore. Like I said, this was back from 2013, but you can still find the collected works in trade paperback and stuff. But definitely huge recommend for me. The art, the writing, also the concept of having 3 different Thors, following the 3 different Thors. You have your past young Thor, your present kind of middle-aged Thor, and your future old King Thor is brilliant. And also the concept of wrestling with the idea of godhood, the idea of what does it mean to be a god? What does it mean to be a follower of a god? How do you pray to your gods? What happens when your gods don't answer you? Are there other gods that can kill? You know, like it's the concept and the theory behind the story is really well spoken and really well written. And I liked some of the questions that are posed within this book because of that, because of, what is a god? What does it mean to be a god? Like I said, those questions, though they may not be answered here, they're posed in such a way to make you think and really kind of get you, get under your skin a little bit, because Gorr kind of questions Thor in a lot of different aspects, which is why he's such a great villain. He really pushes Thor to the edge in this series. So overall, like I said, one of my favorite Thor series, but let me know what you guys thought of the book in the comments section below. Thank you guys again for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.